all your desires.
Watch out! Shadows incoming!
Give it everything you've got, guys!
Welcome, everybody. I am Scott White, and I am once again joined by Ryan Meitzler to talk about some Persona 5 Strikers. How's it going, Ryan?
It's good. I guess you could say we have one more last surprise for everyone for Persona 5 Strikers. It's like
I see what you did there. So, yes, we are here to give you a bit of a preview, a little peek at Persona 5 Strikers, the retail version. Ryan, you've actually been playing some of the retail versions lately, haven't you?
yeah. So we when was it? It was a couple weeks ago now that we did the preview of the. We talked about the game before. So that was a hands-off preview. So yeah, we've been playing the final English build of the game, the Western build that's coming out in February. And yeah, so now I've gotten hands-on time with the game and able to play it, and looking forward to talking about it. So it's coming out in a little more than a month from now.
I know, hard to believe. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like just like a month ago it was just announced. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how far have you played? And kind of give people an idea of what Persona 5 Strikers is.
Yeah, so for those that don't know much about the game, basically it's sort of a continuation of Persona 5, and it's based on the storyline of the original game. So as far as I know and what I played, it doesn't include anything from Persona 5 Royal that came out last year, so it doesn't have any of the sort of expanded content that was in that game. But basically, this is sort of like a direct sequel to Persona 5, the original, but the gameplay is different. It's not a turn-based RPG like the original is. This is more of an action RPG in the style of Musou games, so it's more like Dynasty Warriors and that sort of genre. And the story takes place 6 months after Persona 5, and basically the core idea is that it's Joker getting back together with the Phantom Thieves. They're planning for this big summer road trip, where they're going to go across Japan and go to all these different cities. Obviously, then bad things come up, and they end up having to fight some bad guys, as the Phantom Thieves normally get to have to do. And that's sort of where the story kicks off. So in terms of the preview, I've played so far about 3 to 4 hours of the game. So I'm in like the first section, which takes place in Shibuya, where the the first game, a lot of that took place. And it's actually it's pretty interesting how the game it kind of with Joker sort of reconnecting with the Phantom Thieves and stuff. It takes you through a lot of familiar areas you've seen. So you go to Cafe LeBlanc and you meet up with Futaba and Morgana and all the characters that you spent hundreds of hours with in the first game. And so it's a nice little reunion sort of to reconnect with these characters again. So yeah, I think that's what I played so far at the beginning of the game.
Okay, cool. So with Persona 5 Strikers, you mentioned this is a Musou game. How differently do each of the Phantom Thieves kind of control or behave?
So yeah, with this game, so it's interesting that you start off with Joker, but like Persona 5, you build a party. You could bring. So I'm in the Shibuya stage, the first one, and you go through these. They're called jails in this game, which are basically sort of the palaces of this game. And you can bring 4 party members with you, and before you start the jail, you can choose who you want to bring in. And I think right away I had access to pretty much all of the characters. So I think right away you can bring it. So I think I started off with Joker, Morgana, and there's a new character that gets introduced in the game named Sophie. Yeah, I think it's interesting at first because if because it is a change from the turn-based style gameplay of the original Persona 5, but I think that they've found, so it's not you're not necessarily choosing which attacks to do and stuff. You're just kind of going through, you're hacking and slashing through a bunch of enemies. But I think that they found a really kind of interesting mix of bringing in the more RPG components of Persona 5. So aside from just getting to go in and you hit enemies with your attacks and stuff like that, you can use your personas in this game. So when you're playing as Joker, you're able to use Arsene, and you can basically you hold the L1 button, and it freezes time, and you can sort of choose where you want Arsene's attack to hit, and then it'll hit a group of enemies. And you can also, as you collect more personas, you could choose to use different personas and different abilities. So it has more of that RPG style in there. So it isn't just going in and just bashing a bunch of enemies, with attacks. So there's a little more strategy to it. As far as how all the characters control, I still have to play as more the Phantom Thieves, but so far they're all pretty different. Especially with On, for example, Joker is he's very like fast. He goes in, he can attack a lot of enemies at once. But like On has really good because she has the whip. She can go in and really like attack a big group of enemies pretty easily. So yeah, I think so far from what I played, like each of the Phantom Thieves like does kind of have their own style. I think I have to play a little bit more of it to get a sense of like how each of them is different. But so far, I think there's enough variety in what you can do with them that it makes it really fun to, and kind of essential to like switch around between the different characters.
In terms of the other characters, is Joker the only character that can utilize different personas, like in the main game, or is through the power of narrative can An and Ryuji and the rest have a secondary persona, kind of like what they did with Persona Q?
As far as I know so far from what I played, I think Joker is the only one that can use different personas. So you can collect, as you go through the game, you'll be able to capture different personas and then add them to his. But like in the main game, each of the characters do have levels. So as they gain experience and get higher level, they'll get new abilities they'll be able to use with their personas. So they'll get new, they'll get stronger attacks. They'll get like healing abilities. They'll get buff, abilities where you can buff your teammates and stuff. So yeah. So as far as I know, so far Joker I think is the only one that can, like in the main game, he can get different personas, but you'll be able to make your other teammates stronger in their personas and what they can do.
One of the big features that's been pretty prevalent in a lot of recent Muso and crossover Muso games is being able to quickly on the fly swap characters or assigning orders to your party members that you aren't controlling. Is that the same in Persona 5 Strikers?
Yeah, pretty much. You can. So when you go into the jails, you have on the D-pad, you're able to switch between any of the characters pretty much anytime you want. I haven't really seen anything, I think, yet with giving orders to them, but as you're going, like let's say if you're playing Joker and you have your other party members, like they'll go around and they'll go, they'll hit other enemies or stuff. There's a couple sections, like there's a mission type in some areas where Futaba will have to like hack into an area that you'll have to get into, so you have to like defend her and prevent the enemies from getting up to her. So like the other characters will like try to attack enemies and protect her and all that. But I think what's interesting in this game that they added that it reflects like the original Persona 5 is that you'll have the option to, you have the ability to use things like the all-out attacks. So if you like if you have like a group of enemies and they're weak to a specific persona or attack, so let's say you use Arsene and you use one of Aha or something, and the enemies are weak to that, you'll be able to knock them down, and then you can use an all-out attack to do a lot of damage to them at once. There's also sort of like combination attacks you can use with different party members, so that gives you some flexibility of like, okay, if I bring in Morgana, I can use this like specific ability with her and things like that to do these like really crazy combo attacks.
Okay. Now, seeing as this is a sequel to Persona 5, if you play Persona 5, you know that throughout the course of the game, depending on the level of the confidant, their persona will evolve. Do all the characters kind of start fresh Metroid style with their base persona, or are you seeing their kind of evolved personas from the get-go?
That's actually good. I have to double check if they're the evolved persona, but like basically, yeah, I think more or less you're kind of starting fresh, because I think they do want to try to make this game appeal to people that haven't played Persona 5, even though I think like, if you played Persona 5, like I definitely think that's how you're going to get the most enjoyment out of this game, is because, it pulls a lot from how that game ended and the references and the connections you made from that game. But yeah, I think also like, because they also want to make it accessible for people that haven't necessarily played the original Persona 5 too. So yeah, I think everything more or less starts fresh, but there is actually sort of like, and I know you kind of mentioned as well, that there's sort of an equivalent of the social link system in this game, where there's a bond system. So it's not quite as in-depth, because like obviously this game you don't really get to like, you can go walk around to the different areas, but you can't really do like in the main game, where you have to have like a schedule and a routine of like, okay, I'm going to go hang out with Futaba on this day, or Morgana on this day, whatever. It's kind of more like a skill tree, basically, where there's like a bond where basically you get points, and then you can like put them into specific characters to like give them new abilities or new options. There's also some abilities you can unlock that affect your whole team. So like you'll get more experience points, or you can increase all of their health, things like that.
One of the big things with Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal is kind of the side quests and the side characters, things like that, and the abilities you unlock through the confidant system. Are there playable kind of side confidants again, like LeBlanc or any of the previous games confidants that you can interact with or gain bonuses from that way as well?
So as far as bonuses, I don't think so. There's definitely some side characters, NPCs from Persona 5 that do make it into this game. Like Sojiro is there, like pretty much right from the beginning when you go to Blanc, and you have Lavenza. She's there, so you do get introduced to the Velvet Door, and you can go there to fuse personas. You can make them stronger, all that. It's actually interesting at the beginning of the game from what I played in the first couple hours. There's a part where you try to go to Takemi, the hot goth nurse from the original game. You try to go to her clinic to get something, but her clinic is closed for the summer. So you're not able to interact with her. And then the guy who runs the airsoft shop in the game, I forget what his name is, but who you get weapons from in the main game, he's also not there. So I don't know, maybe if it's just they couldn't get those actors back or something like that for it. But yeah, so there's a couple characters they reference but aren't in the game, but there are also Sojiro's there, and I'm sure as I get further into the game I'll see more of the side characters that were in Persona 5 in this one.
Cool. Is kind of speaking of, because this is taking place in the summer, is there any sort of calendar like system or kind of an idea of like, do you have X amount of days to complete a jail? Kind of like how you had to complete a palace in X amount of days, otherwise you would fail or be discovered. Is anything like that in here?
Sort of, yeah. So there is the calendar system that's like sort of in the game where it's like as you play the game, like time progresses. But I think again, I've only played like 4 hours of the game so far, so I'm not deep enough to like really see that yet, like further. But it starts off in July, and I think the game only takes place across the summer, so I think it's just basically July and August. But yeah, there are like basically once you get to specific story moments, then like time will progress. But as far as like the jails, I'm still in the first one. I don't think there's any like specific time limit, because there's a couple points where I've jumped back out of the jail because I like ran out of SP or needed to go back and get items or something, and time didn't really like move forward. It was just like, okay, you hopped out, you can go back, and then once you do all the stuff you need to like in the real world, you can hop back into the jail again. Okay. So I don't necessarily think yet there's like a time limit, but that might change once I get further into the game.
Okay. Kind of touching on items and whatnot, is there any sort of like crafting, or is it just you go to a shop and you buy weapons, or do enemies drop weapons? How is it are weapons and equipment handled more like they are in Persona, or more as they are handled in Musou games where they're just dropped from enemies and you equip them?
It's mostly like Persona actually, so it's pretty similar. So there is so when you get Sophie in your party, she's basically like an app on your phone, and you can bring her up and you can go into a shop, and it's basically like the shop in Persona 5 where you can buy new equipment and gear and equip your characters with new items that'll boost their stats and everything. But yeah, as far as items, you can either enemies will drop them, as you take down enemies, you'll be able to pick up like healing items and stuff like that. Another thing too is that when you're going through the jails, there are treasure chests you can pick up, kind of like in Persona 5, and they'll be hidden in like different spots. So the game kind of encourages you to go to like try to find hidden areas that you might not see right away or anything. And it also has some of the stealth like sort of elements from the first game, where there's sentries and enemies that'll be walking around, and you want to try to avoid being spotted by them, because if you get spotted too many times, it'll alert the like ruler of the jail, and then it'll cut off access to certain treasure chests or items until you're able to like lower your alertness rating. So yeah.
Kind of speaking on characters, in the original game, Futaba just acts as support. Are you able to like play as Futaba like in combat in this game?
Unfortunately not. No, she's a support character in this game. Yeah, but she's still she's still as great, I think, as she is in the first game. And I feel like she's way more talkative in this game than she was in the you hear from her a lot more in this one than I think you did in Persona 5.
Oh, that's good. I guess tell us a bit more about Sophie, this brand new character to the Phantom Thieves.
Yeah, so you encounter her pretty early in the game, like in the first like hour or two, and you basically it's like the Phantom Thieves, they sort of discover a way to sort of get back into the metaverse, like in the first game, and she's this sort of like AI that they discover, and it's really interesting. Like
Mhm.
she's a cool character. I think I'll probably have to play a bit more of the game to get to know her a little better. But yeah, she's kind of the replacement for the in the first game when they had the app that like notified them of being able to go into the metaverse and everything. So
Mhm.
she's kind of the replacement for that. But yeah, and then she they discover that she's able to use personas and fight shadows and everything. So I'm sure as I get deeper into the game, they'll sort of go more into her backstory of why she's able to use a persona and all that.
Um, very cool. She sounds interesting.
Yeah.
We know that there's story missions and story maps. Is there a mementos kind of bottomless kind of a grinding area that serves more as just doing like side quests or grinding, or is that pretty much completely gone due to story reasons from the first game or the original game?
I don't know for sure yet. Again, because it's like I'm still pretty early in the game, and I think
Mhm.
as far as I've seen, the game is probably I think the game's about like 40-45 hours, so it's still a pretty
Okay.
pretty like long experience, but it's
Mhm.
not nearly as long as like the original Persona 5 was. Yeah, so far I haven't seen anything yet that of there being like a mementos in this game. I feel like it's probably a little more linear than the first game was, but yeah, I mean it could change as I play further, but nothing yet from what I played.
Very nice, very nice. And I guess, um, what has surprised you most about your time with Strikers so far?
I think what surprised me most is just that I think going into this game, I wasn't sure how I would like the combat because I think for me like what I love a lot about the Persona games from playing 3, 4, and 5 is the RPG systems, and I really like the way
Mm-hmm.
that especially in 5 how they between like doing the baton pass and like I feel like those elements I think all really worked well together. So with this game I didn't know, and I've only played like a couple of Musou games before, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're fine. They're just not really like a type of game that I play a lot. But I think this game manages to like I think what surprised me about it is just how well it managed to sort of balance the more action style gameplay of the Musou games,
Mm-hmm.
but also bring in more of those like RPG aspects of Persona. The way that you can use the personas to attack enemies, and you can use their weaknesses, and then there's also things you have to keep an eye on, like status effects, like your enemy, and you can
Mm-hmm.
burn enemies. You can your characters will sometimes be dazed or like shocked or something like that, and you have to use a healing item. So I think so far it finds a good way of sort of taking the best of these both worlds of like the Persona series and what that style of gameplay is like, and
Mm-hmm.
also the more action heavy gameplay of Musou games.
Nice. Now, what platform are you playing? Doing your preview and review on?
So I'm playing the PS4 version, and I'm playing it. I'm playing it on PS5.
Okay, running fairly well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so far I was debating playing between the Switch version and the PS4 version, but
Mm-hmm.
I figured in terms of getting sort of the best experience out of it, I wanted to play on PS4, and so far yeah, it's running great. There actually is in the menu. I don't know if this is just specific to playing on a PS5, but there is an option to do like a performance mode for the game. So right now I'm playing it in 1080 60 frames per second. So, and I think that there's an option to you can choose either to
Mm-hmm.
prioritize frame rate or visuals.
And if you prioritize visuals, does that bump it up to 4K?
I have to check. I don't have a 4K TV, so I can't necessarily check that. But I would imagine it might just it would yeah. I'm sure for it to some extent it would probably just probably make the game look a little better and all that. But you would be bumping down the actual frame rate performance of the game.
Okay.
And I figured I'm playing with the performance mode just because I figured that with this game being as action heavy and with so many enemies on screen and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, that I would prefer to play it with the higher frame rate.
Yeah, I'd be anxious to hear like how it runs on the PS5 in visual mode. Like if
Mhm.
there's much of a dropper or anything playing on the new hardware. Um,
Yeah.
Musu games traditionally have, or a lot of times have multiplayer components. Are you able to play Persona 5 Strikers like with a buddy, like local co-op or anything?
No, this is just it's single player only.
Okay. Um, is there anything else that you think people should know about before they decide whether or not they should pick up Persona 5 Strikers themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think so far, like I'm enjoying my time with the game so far. Like I think, like I said, it finds a really good balance of taking sort of the Persona series gameplay elements and what I love about the series so much, and sort of giving it a new sort of perspective with Musou games. And yeah, I mean, I just played Persona 5 Royal last year, and that was my first time playing through Persona 5, and I think it's good to sort of reconnect with these characters in this world again, and it's nice to do it in like a sort of different way than what we saw with the original game. But yeah, I think so far it seems like it's a really good experience. I'm excited to continue playing more of it, especially because it like I said before, it takes place across like different. I think it takes place in like 6 different cities across Japan. So I think I'll be interested to see, aside from Shibuya, which is the first section I'm in now, which was from the original game, to see like taking you into like different locations that are a little more varied than what we saw in the first game.
Very, very cool. Well, thanks for stopping by and giving us just a little preview and taste of the retail version and your experience so far with Persona 5 Strikers, Ryan. For all of you Persona 5 fans out there that are anxiously awaiting this game as well, Persona 5 Strikers is releasing in the West on February 23rd, 2021, so we don't have long to wait. And you can be sure we will have a full review from Ryan when the time comes, so look forward to that as well. And where can people find you on the internet, Ryan, to keep up to date with all the good Persona goodness?
Just keep up to date on DualShockers as we bring you Persona stuff and otherwise. And otherwise, yeah, you can just find me on Twitter, just my name, and that's pretty much it.
Perfect. And you can find me on Twitter at SolidSnake120 and likewise on youtube.com/DualShockers. So be sure to check there for a bunch of, I imagine we'll have a lot of Persona 5 Strikers goodness waiting for you. And until next time, everybody, thanks for stopping by. Stay safe, stay healthy, be kind to one another. Phantom Thieves out.